Hey guys, Father Casey here. My first weekend here, I wasn't really given an opportunity to introduce myself, so I wanted to take that now. Jennifer, the lady in charge of institutional advancement, suggested I do a video and put it on the website, so I'm hoping that's where this ends up. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm originally from southern Indiana. I grew up there in a very small town. I have a twin brother, his name's Cody, and I have two older brothers, Matt and Tim, three nephews and a niece. I went to the University of Evansville. I have a degree in mathematics, and once I graduated in 2005, I started working at Humana as an actuary, and if you don't know what that is, it's a very small profession. I find it fascinating. It would bore most of you, I'm sure. I studied a lot of statistics and probability. But I should probably answer the question of how I got here. Just to take you back to my youth, my family, we weren't very religious. We never really practiced. We would go to church on Easter Sunday and Christmas. But I had a friend as a kid whose grandmother was a minister at a local church. It was the English Church of God, it was called. And I would go there, and she introduced me to Jesus Christ. And there was something intriguing about this man that I wanted to know something more about. And by going there, occasionally, with Lindsay, that was my friend's name, I sort of fostered this religion, this faith within myself that I wanted to share with my parents. And so I would go home and I would say Mama and Paul. That's what I call them, Mama and Paul. And I would share that with them, and they didn't seem particularly interested. I remember as a kid I would often ask my dad if he would take me to church, and he would say, no, we don't, I'm not interested in that. I've got enough church in my life. So he sort of left me on my own. And so that, I sort of nurtured that throughout my youth, throughout high school, throughout college. And I was ashamed of my faith, really, because I never felt comfortable talking about it. My friends would ask me about it, and I never wanted to express it. So when I graduated from college with my degree in math, as I said, and moved to Louisville to be on my own, I then felt comfortable exploring my faith. You know, it's at this point that a lot of people will rebel and go wild. Well, I started going to church. I guess I'm a bit of a bore. I'm also a math geek, so that's what we do. So, as luck would have it, the guy who sat beside me at Humana in the cubicle, he was a devout Catholic. He's about my age. He'd considered the priesthood when he was younger, so he knew a lot about the faith. He was very informed in it. And we would have some good conversations about Catholicism, which was important because my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, my parents even, were all quite anti-Catholic. And we've got someone trying to come in here, but we'll keep going. But yeah, so where I came from, there was sort of this sense of anti-Catholicism within that compelled me to consider the Protestant churches in Louisville, which I did, and I bounced around from Protestant church to Protestant church, and they were all beautiful, and there were very many good things about them, but they never seemed to be quite what I was looking for. Finally, I sort of gave up. I said, after a year or two of looking for a church that really fit this sort of faith, this religion that I had cultivated on my own, I finally decided to go to Mass with my friend. His name's Juan. And we went to the cathedral there in downtown Louisville. And there was something beautiful about it. I can't quite express it. There was a mystery to it, a transcendence. I could see the altar up in the front there. I knew something was going on up there, but I didn't know what it was. I knew that it was sort of otherworldly. It was beyond anything that I had seen in any of the other churches that I had been to. There was something mysterious here, something almost miraculous. And I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to get to know more about it. And so Juan and I, we discussed the Mass, and I did some reading on my own. And, I was surprised by that Mass because there was scripture. all of my youth, I had heard Catholics, they don't read the Bible, they don't know anything about the Bible. So just to hear the gospel proclaimed and the reading and the Old and New Testament proclaimed at the Mass was very comforting for me. And the music was really good there. And so it was something I wanted to be a part of. And so in the fall of 2007, I decided to join RCIA. And then, I don't remember the date, but April something of 2008, I believe, at the Easter Vigil, I was baptized and confirmed and received First Communion. Archbishop Kurtz is the one actually who did that there at the cathedral. And so what a beautiful gift it was for me on May the 27th, just a month or so ago, to be ordained a priest of Jesus Christ by that same man in that same church. Often we're asked to share a little bit about our vocation story, how it is that once I converted to Catholicism, I came to be a priest. And that's a good question. I was very happy in a way. I was very successful at my job there as an actuary. It was what I had always wanted in many ways. My measure of success up to that point was financial. I had my own home. It was a very nice home. I had everything I wanted. But at the end of the day, I would go home and there's something missing. There's a void within that wasn't being nurtured and filled by probabilities and statistics, you know. And so I decided to start going to daily Mass. I would walk by the cathedral every day, and actually Father Martin Lineback was one of the regular celebrants then, so I got to know him then. So it's really neat that he's now the pastor I'm assigned with. But so I would go to daily Mass there regularly, and Father Martin one day asked me, "Casey, you know, maybe you should consider serving Mass." And it was very intimidating, you know, being up there in the sanctuary. It wasn't really anything I wanted to be a part of, just because I was so timid and afraid of it, basically. And but he eventually talked me into it. So Father Martin's the first priest ever to invite me to be involved in the Mass. And then so shortly after that, there's perpetual Eucharistic adoration at St. Martin of Tours, not far from the cathedral there in the downtown area. And I would start going there late at night just to pray with our Lord exposed in the monstrance there. And the idea of priesthood came into my mind, and it was an idea that I readily set aside because I'm quite introverted. I'm terrified of public speaking. I didn't think I had the charisma of that Protestant minister from when I was a kid of thumping the Bible and preaching hellfire and brimstone and calling us to the altar, you know. Fortunately, I spoke with some priests, and they said that's not really required. In fact, it's not really even desired. So you know, I had that notion in my head coming into my mind of priesthood and prayer, and then my twin brother. He came to me one day and said, "So when are you going to go off and be a priest?" I said, "Well, that's ridiculous. Why would you ask me a question like that, you know?" And my best friend Michael, he asked me one day out of the blue, and it was very interesting. People who aren't Catholic, or at least nominally so, are sort of seeing priestly qualities in me. And so that gave me further encouragement to act on this idea that was in my head. You know, for others to see priestly qualities in me was sort of the impetus that I needed to take the next step. And so I had a number of conversations with Father Bill Fichterman, who was a former pastor here. He was the rector of the cathedral at the time, and he encouraged me to consider it. And so I did prayerfully for about a year and a half, I think. So I don't remember the timing. I remember one of the key moments in my decision to leave my job was I was at Arby's. I know it's a strange place to make a life decision, but I was at the Arby's in the downtown Louisville area, and we would go there for lunch. And we were there complaining about what we always complain about: the raise wasn't big enough, or the bonus didn't quite meet expectations. And there was a young Latino bussing tables. He was cleaning tables, as I guess employees sometimes do at Arby's. And I saw a look in his eyes of contentment, I don't know, I would say joy maybe, that was beyond anything that I was experiencing, living what I thought was my dream at Humana. This kid at Arby's seems to be happier than I was. So that, along with the encouragement of my friends, of Father Bill Fichterman, Father Martin Lineback, gave me the courage that I needed to sell my home. My twin brother was living with me at the time, to kick him out, and to move on to seminary. Before I moved on to seminary, I actually lived for a year at St. Bartholomew with Father Peter Doe. So all these people I've lived with and been in contact with have also passed through St. James here. So it's sort of funny how Providence works like that. So I went did 2 years of seminary in Washington, D.C., and then the bishop asked me if I would be willing to study in Rome. I said no. I have no interest in that sort of thing. But they eventually talked me into it. So I moved to Rome on July the 15th of 2013, and I spent 3 years over there. They were the 3 most challenging years of my life. They were also the 3 most life-giving years of my life. I met some of the greatest, holiest people over there I've ever known, and I was able to travel the world, and so that was a great opportunity. And I finished up there June of 2016, and then moved back to Washington, D.C. to do my last year of seminary. One other thing I wanted to mention is I was ordained a deacon on March the 19th of last year, 2016. And a week later at the Easter Vigil, as deacon, I was blessed to be able to baptize my dad. At that point, he came home to the Catholic Church, and so it was a beautiful gift for me to be able to take the one to church who wouldn't take me when I was a child. And to add to all of that, throughout my seminary years, I was able and blessed to be my twin brother's godfather and my mother's sponsor. They both came into the Catholic Church in 2011, just as I was beginning seminary. So in my short journey toward the altar of sacrifice, I've been able to welcome my twin brother as his godfather, my mother as her sponsor, and then my dad as the one who baptized him. So that's a little bit about me. I'm excited to be here at St. James. The community has been very warm and welcoming and hospitable thus far. And I'm looking forward to what the future holds. So if you ever run into me, feel free to introduce yourself, and I look forward to getting to know you better. Take care, and God bless.